At first glance, the July 2025 Rio BRICS Summit was business as usual, the familiar sight of world leaders discussing global cooperation. Yet, while that was happening, US President Donald Trump had just threatened BRICS members with an additional 10% tariffs for pursuing anti-American policies. For South Africa, this illustrated the central dilemma of BRICS membership: a choice between enhanced influence in the global south and being caught in the middle of great power competition. Welcome to the second episode of SAIIA's World in Flux series. Today, we'll explore one of South Africa's most consequential foreign policy gambles: BRICS. In 2001, Jim O'Neill at Goldman Sachs coined the term BRIC to describe the emerging economies of Brazil, Russia, India, and China as future growth engines. The 2008 financial crisis provided the catalyst. What began as an investment concept evolved into a political platform as confidence in Western institutions declined. By 2009, these four countries began holding summits to amplify their collective voice in reshaping international institutions and global economic governance. In 2010 came the surprise. South Africa was invited to join, transforming BRIC into BRICS. Many wondered why. At that stage, Mexico, Turkey, South Korea, and even Nigeria had larger economies. The answer wasn't about economic size, but strategic value and broader representation. South Africa offered a diversified economy, established institutions, and continental credibility. These qualities allowed BRICS to signal its aim, representing emerging economies marginalized by Western-dominated institutions, not simply the largest ones. For Pretoria, this meant an extraordinary opportunity and enormous responsibility. A mid-sized African economy of 60 million people, presenting itself as the gateway for 1.5 billion Africans at the global top table. BRICS' playbook was practical rather than revolutionary. Instead of replacing Western institutions, they built complementary ones. The new development bank, established in 2014 with headquarters in Shanghai, exemplifies this approach. Countries ranging from Bangladesh and Egypt to the UAE and Algeria have joined the bank since 2021. They were drawn by its terms: no requirements for BRICS membership, loans often provided in local currency rather than dollars, and crucially, no policy restrictions from Washington or Brussels. The new development bank operates with considerably smaller capital than the World Bank or IMF and still relies on Western credit agencies. However, by the end of 2024, the bank had approved $39 billion in nearly 100 projects. South Africa secured approximately $5 billion for multiple projects in sustainable infrastructure, renewable energy, and basic sanitation. Central to BRICS' appeal is reducing dependency on a single payment system for international money transfers. Currently, most countries rely on SWIFT, a network that handles international bank transfers using mainly US dollars. In the 2010s, many governments realized a problem. The US or other Western countries could block them from using the main international payment system. This made countries vulnerable, so they began looking for alternatives. When Russia was kicked out of SWIFT in 2022, this surge became more urgent. BRICS countries are now developing their own payment system called BRICS Pay, which would let them trade using their own currencies instead of dollars. This isn't about ditching the US dollar completely. Rather, it's about having choices. Most BRICS countries still want and will continue to use dollars for international trade, but they also want backup options. Sometimes trading directly in their own currencies makes more economic sense. And sometimes, like with Russia after its invasion of Ukraine, they need alternatives because they've been cut off from the main system as punishment. After years of internal debate, at the 2023 summit in Johannesburg, BRICS began a significant expansion. It welcomed Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran and the UAE in 2024, followed by Indonesia in January 2025. Other countries were also invited. Argentina withdrew after electing pro-Western President Javier Milei, while Saudi Arabia remains uncommitted. With its expanded membership, BRICS now accounts for approximately 40% of global output, measured by purchasing power, and roughly 44% of the world's population. For South Africa, this has created complex new dynamics. BRICS now has 3 African voices instead of 1, strengthening collective representation but diminishing South Africa's ability to speak for the continent. BRICS expansion brings both benefits and problems. Adding major oil producers like Iran and the UAE gives the group more economic power. But having more countries with different priorities makes it much harder for everyone to find common ground on decisions. How does BRICS work when its members are so different? Simple. They avoid the big fights and focus on things everyone can agree on. When they can't, they often agree to disagree, acknowledging other forums to discuss it. This informal approach allows very different countries to work together, whether they're democracies, dictatorships, or even rivals. However, when an issue is considered important enough, they pursue consensus rather than putting it aside. BRICS works hard to find solutions everyone can accept, though this doesn't always succeed. In April 2025, their foreign ministers couldn't even settle on a joint statement because Egypt and Ethiopia objected to supporting South Africa for a UN Security Council seat alongside Brazil and India. This was the first time in BRICS history they'd failed to issue a joint statement. By July's Rio summit, they'd found a workaround. They dropped South Africa's specific mention, kept supporting Brazil and India, and backed a broader African proposal for 2 permanent African seats on the Council. BRICS still matters for South Africa in very practical ways. The new development bank helps fund major projects when government budgets are under pressure. In 2024, the bank raised $16.1 billion after regaining access to global bond markets, which it had paused during the fallout from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. There are many examples of the bank's tangible value for South Africa. Its renewable energy funding helped finance solar projects during South Africa's 2022-2023 electricity crisis, moving faster than World Bank alternatives. The bank's commitment to provide 30% of financing in borrowers' local currencies also shielded South Africa from rand volatility that typically accompanies major infrastructure deals in dollars. Yet for all its successes, BRICS still faces significant constraints. Most BRICS economies aren't naturally complementary to one another and often export similar products. As a result, all BRICS countries trade a lot with China, but much less with one another. Building payment infrastructure also requires regulatory coordination and considerable time, which BRICS has yet to show it can handle. Collective success depends on creating effective and reliable systems. This challenge is evident in the group's rapid expansion to over 180 working groups, covering everything from agriculture to tourism. While some produce clear, tangible results, others have proven less effective, duplicating efforts or delivering limited outcomes. This expansion has created new problems. Getting everyone to agree was already difficult, and now it's even harder with more countries and more committees which often have competing interests. With new members still learning how BRICS operates, the group desperately needs clearer rules about who does what. BRICS membership also brings serious geopolitical risks. Trump's 2025 tariff wars demonstrated how economic cooperation can become a geopolitical liability when Washington views the BRICS suspiciously. Having Iran and Russia as members exacerbates the tensions, as both are openly US adversaries, reinforcing the perception of BRICS as an anti-Western bloc. For its part, South Africa has adopted a practical diversification strategy, treating BRICS as an additional network rather than replacing its relationships with Western organizations and finance systems. Its traditional partners remain crucial, as the US and EU are vital markets. Still, BRICS offers insurance against an increasingly politicized international environment where financial access can depend on political alignment rather than purely economic considerations. Perhaps, instead of viewing BRICS as anti-Western, South Africa and other members see it as simply non-Western. This approach expands members' options, aligning with the views of most BRICS members on avoiding the costs of choosing sides while maintaining flexibility in an unpredictable global environment. Most significantly, BRICS gives South Africa platforms for advocating African interests as global governance evolves. BRICS' 4 consecutive G20 presidencies, including South Africa's in 2025, demonstrate the bloc's growing influence. This influence can bring real benefits for Africa. Through BRICS, South Africa, Egypt, and Ethiopia can help design new institutions from the ground up, ensuring African voices are heard. These 3 countries can also push BRICS to support practical projects that will ultimately assist the continent. These include, for example, assisting in strengthening the African Continental Free Trade Area or building complementarity with the Pan-African payment system so African businesses can trade with each other and the world more directly. South Africa's engagement with BRICS reflects a strategic choice to diversify its international partnerships while managing the risk of being drawn into great power competitions. Results show promising prospects for Africa, yet significant challenges remain. South Africa desires to make BRICS work while keeping options open. In an increasingly uncertain world, having multiple avenues for engagement may prove the most tactical strategy. The real test comes when those relationships conflict, and how South Africa prioritizes which partnerships matter most. Next time on World in Flux, we'll explore South Africa's most controversial partnership, its relationship with Russia, and what it tells us about Pretoria's foreign policy in turbulent times. Let us know in the comments. Do you think South Africa's BRICS strategy will pay off, or is it too risky? For more analysis, visit www.saiia.org.za and don't forget to like and subscribe.